with HT Ventures, which is the corporate venture arm of the Heritage Group. Maybe start with my background. I have a PhD in chemistry and did my first company out of startup from University of North Carolina. So it's been 20 years since I interacted deeply with tech transfer on that side, but it was an interesting experience that I carry with me today. At 3 startups in the industrial sector and material science sustainability, stint as an R&D lead at a nonprofit research institute, and then joined HT Ventures. 2018, we launched as the corporate venture arm of the Heritage Group. For those that may not know, Heritage Group is a 90-year-old Indianapolis-based multi-billion-dollar private company. We have operating companies in heavy construction materials, environmental services, mostly waste management for big Fortune 500 companies, and specialty chemicals. Like many Midwest companies, we're a private family-owned business. We'd seen, impressive, consistent growth in that sort of humble Midwestern manner. And we invested in entrepreneurs where we can help in our core industrial businesses, those adjacent and disrupted through our corporate venture arm, HG Ventures, and then a Heritage sponsors Techstars Accelerator to support even earlier stage businesses like the pre-seed and seed stage. So we're very sector specific, but generally stage and geography agnostics. So it's sustainable materials, infrastructure, industrial processes. We'll talk a little bit more about trends in the places where we invest later on. Let's see, anything else you might want to share? We do about $50 million per year in investments. We've done $130 million in 2.5 years in 20 companies. So we're very active, and we'll welcome our 3rd class of Techstars here in September. Go ahead, Kai.
Well, there'll be no one-upping, that's for sure. But thank you, Five Lakes, Jim Jur, for inviting me. I'm a digital industrial guy, to use a nice buzzword, through and through. I grew up in a couple generations of manufacturers in my family. Found myself working in the CTO's office at Boeing for a while on a lot of fun engineering projects. That'll be some of the technologies we'll talk about here today. I found out I was not the sharpest engineer in any room, so I went to business school. And post-business school, I've had a fun ride. I was an investor at GE Ventures as that corporate venture group was really taking off. I spent some time in the Midwest with the Pritzker Group venture capital team in Chicago. So big fan of the manufacturing heartbeat, let alone a lot of other industrial things going on, as my partner Ginger mentioned. And then the latest effort here is I've launched Iron Spring Ventures with a few of my partners. And really the short story here is we're a $60 million fund that launched last year to just focus on what we define as digital industrial. And beyond the buzzword, think manufacturing, transportation, logistics, construction. I simplify it into a joke sometimes. If Mike Rowe and the Dirty Jobs crew would go film it, and we can bring some software in there to make it efficient, productive, and profitable, that is all we know how to do. So our $60 million fund will focus on post-seed and Series A investments, helping define the way, as we say it, the world builds, designs, operates, and distributes our global infrastructure. So excited to have a chat.
I thought it'd be fun to talk about our latest 2 investments that we both announced. And I heard one of yours just presented, right? You wanna start with that? Maybe share a little bit about maybe the sector and why it was exciting to you, and we can trade on and off.
Yeah, I actually didn't know Fast Radius was going to be talking to the audience today, but that was exciting to hear. So Fast Radius, I think it's probably one of our first investments out of the fund, so maybe not the latest, but definitely one that's really exciting. When you think of this world of decentralized manufacturing or cloud manufacturing, there's a whole lot of way people are defining this, but Fast Radius is building a whole bunch of micro manufacturing footprints all across the world that have a bunch of advanced capabilities such as additive, but also CNC, injection molding, some more traditional manufacturing methods. But the bigger picture is we've always had these 3 modalities of moving goods around the world: land, air, and sea. Well, what if you can put a part file in a digital environment, the cloud, and then wherever the need is across the world, let's stop putting as much stuff on transportation modes and into inventory and warehousing. Let's just print it on demand, or let's just have more localized manufacturing footprint so that at the end of the day, thank you, Amazon, we're moving into a hyper-local, hyper-custom, hyper-now reality for all of our goods. And so Fast Radius is trying to redefine how that playbook will be built. And it's great to have an investor like UPS alongside us, so that whenever that logistics backbone to make that all go around is an exciting one. So in the world of, call it manufacturing as a service, Uber manufacturing, I think you're only going to see more and more of that. And Ginger, I know we've had a lot of discussion about it. So excited what Fast Radius is doing. And Chicago-based company, so go Midwest.
Go Midwest. Maybe I'll pile on Midwest. We just announced a company last Friday, PowerTech Water. It's a wastewater treatment company based in Lexington, Kentucky. It's a UK spin out. So we led their Series A just a couple of weeks ago. The company is developing a product. It's called Electromet in the on-site treatment of heavy metals in wastewater streams. So think of it as a Brita filter that traps metal in an electrode. So markets are things like metal finishing, automotive, battery recycling, all those heavy industries that are exciting to us as a corporation, but I think interesting just again with the decentralization of manufacturing that Ty just mentioned. They do a different business model than most wastewater treatment. So it's a multi-year lease, cartridge replacement, disposal. We have a company, Heritage Environmental, which is the largest private environmental services company in the US. So we deal with industrial waste of all types. Waste streams and metals we know are particularly tricky because usually you take these huge amounts of wastewater, small amounts of metal, they're hazardous. And usually you just dump a bunch of chemicals in them to precipitate out the metal. It falls to the bottom and creates sludge. It's kind of easy to do, but it's very time intensive and chemical intensive. And that's becoming, with regulations being on the environmental side, what it is, it's more difficult and costly to deal with that. And so it's fun because it uses electrochemistry and capture those metals on these sort of Brita filters. Easy to install, easy to operate, and then next step would be to pull those metals off because the cost of metals is going up and up. So we're excited about the circular economy piece of that as well. So that's another one. Ty, you want to go for a second company?
Yeah, it says the PhD on water electrolysis and then the massive empire behind you to support. That would be a very lucky startup to get to partner with you guys. So yeah, when you asked me to think of a second one here, everyone loves to talk about robots. So let's talk about robots. We just invested in a company called Plus One Robotics, and there has been a lot of attention to robots doing this or that, and usually it gets into this discussion of, are they going to replace the jobs? Are they going to augment jobs? And all of the things that come with it. And exciting for us, Plus One is very much human exceptionalism is at the core of what they're doing within warehousing environments to help pick, pack, sort, depalletize, all of the things that now with retail going online at a faster clip than ever, more is being pushed through the Amazon, FedEx, UPS, and the distribution hubs associated with all of those logistics providers. So Plus One, in a short way, you can think of them, they build the fancy eyeballs, said differently, computer vision that makes sure that whatever colored paint robot or whatever systems integrator you want to use to make that use case efficient in a warehouse, they're that AI computer vision algorithm that will make sure that the robot is picking and grasping and moving things to the right place. And, you know, I mentioned the human exceptionalism part of it. What's really great about the company, they are not of the ilk that AI will solve all the world's problems and you can turn the factory lights out. Par for the course for them is, no, there's always a human in the loop, and maybe even someone that was a warehouse skilled laborer that now advances their skills and is upskilled to be behind a computer. And whenever that robot inevitably fails, because it will, robots are not going to be able to solve the use cases at the edge, they can then help guide the robot through a computer method. And so Plus One is really focused on trying to help evolve what is already a labor shortage crisis, let alone making and upskilling those jobs into 21st century jobs, again, so that we can push all of these goods through our supply chain in a more efficient, productive, and profitable manner. So we're excited about them down in San Antonio, Texas, of all places. So
easy for you to visit. Nice.
Yeah, exactly. That's part of it.
You know, it's great to have Ty here because I know all of the like boring physical build it in a plant stuff, and he's got all the bits and bots and whatever digital stuff. So it's nice to have both sides of the industrial equation here. Last one I would highlight, again, into that category of shred stuff up and touchy-feelies, is Pretread. It was a Techstars company of ours that repurposes waste tires and plastics into industrial use barriers. So think about those concrete blocks you see lining the highway. Concrete is, you know, from a sustainability perspective, one of the worst materials on the planet. So think about those, replacing them with like a dark green or a forest brown produced from recycled materials. So a company has produced some sample products. I got to be there at a 2,000-ton press in Illinois. We funded them to scale production to meet some of that demand from private construction, state DOT, military customers. So there are a lot of unmet needs in in agencies and governments, burdens with excess tire waste. There's tire companies that are trying to figure out what to do, seeking circular solutions, and then construction groups that are desiring more sustainable, safe products. So it's cool to find some recycled products that actually work and replace some of the traditional concrete materials where there's been very little innovation. So hopefully that gives you a flavor of the types of companies that we're interested in. Thought we could spend a couple more minutes maybe talking about other trends that we're excited about, and then happy to open it up to Q&A. I heard the last session, people liked hearing about different pains that people had with industry and university. Ask whatever questions you want. We're here for that. So you want to go first, Ty? A couple of interesting trends you've been also seeing?
Yeah, this one's really an emerging trend that I think is going to gain steam pretty quickly. We've seen some executive orders come out from the new administration around cybersecurity in our meatpacking plants, our pipelines. We cannot afford to have those types of things shut down for obvious reasons. And so I'm seeing a new class of founders now, while maybe the cybersecurity conversation is becoming more mature and there's ways of, at the IT level, being able to protect those assets and more generally the systems of record. Well, what about the OT environment where the boots literally hit the factory floor and you have, these little things called PLCs, programmable logic controllers, if you think of it that way, those little computers that have been around on the factory floor since the 70s, they run most of our global infrastructure, and it's not terribly difficult to hack into these little guys. And so when you think about a Tampa water treatment facility, it gets really bad if someone was messing around with pH balance and some other things. So beyond the nuance of the setup, I'm now watching groups that came out of, call it great tech companies like Uber, Airbnb, name your other pick, that have modern DevOps tools. And when I say DevOps, think about how programmers push and pull and commit code into the way all of our world works. Well, now they're going to the OT level of industrials. Maybe they had family in the Midwest. Maybe they're passionate about their next play being a bigger impact per se, not to say anything about impact on the other side of the equation, but they're now developing developer tools to bring those jobs and also the security and operational benefits that come with it into the 21st century, so that we aren't having bad actors or these ransomware attacks that we're now reading the CEOs in the Wall Street Journal saying, I had to pay because it's mission critical, we got to get it back online. So OT developer tools for programmers as engineering and computer science becomes only more important to the factory floor. Very excited about that trend. And I think, again, it's mission critical to do it. So.
Oh, that's a really good one. I wanted to pull out the thread you mentioned about decentralized manufacturing too. I think it's a really exciting one and interesting one, given folks on this call may not be as aware of all the issues in the supply chain right now. Every single one of our portfolio companies is having issues sourcing, microelectronics, steel, lumber, just basic parts. And certainly there's lots of ways to help the supply chain. One is just to make things more locally, right? When you think about industrial processes, normally you think about giant manufacturing plants. These things take advantages of economies of scale, things like energy or chemicals or widgets, whatever it is, it's cheaper if you make a lot of them, right? So, and technology is changing rapidly. There's a lot of interesting work happening in universities. RPE is funding some interesting things. DOE is funding some interesting things. So some of these industrial processes are starting to become economical in a small scale unit, something that might fit in the back of a trailer truck. I've seen some that use mass manufactured parts like car engines or super catalysts to drive down the cost, so that the economies of scale are starting to switch to maybe economies of mass manufacture. So that's an area that I'm also incredibly interested in. And I'm seeing some more startups coming out of the universities and others in this sector. So that's one I think is pretty exciting.